Cody, welcome to the show. You
What up, man? Thanks for having me on here.
guys have a new Super Bowl joining from Kansas City.
Let's do it. Dynasty.
Man, who knows? I saw Patrick Mahomes was shotgunning a beer with Luke Combs at some concert somewhere, and I was like, what a lad.
That's one way to put it. He's always doing something crazy like that.
I know it'd be I was going to say it would be interesting to follow him around, but they did a whole Netflix series on him, and we pretty much followed him around. So I don't know how much more in his space we could get before it's considered stalking.
Yeah, I think that he is very happy with the distance between us and him right now.
100%. But dude, we got connected from a mutual friend and my neighbor actually, and we had a call a couple of weeks ago and we hit it off really well. And I was like, dude, you're a neuroscientist. I'd love for you to come on the show and just talk more about trauma and a few other things because everyone experiences trauma in their own way, shape, or form, and having a better understanding around it and some tools to overcome it, and even how the body keeps score of it and what it can do to yourself from illness to all of that sort of stuff is a cool thing to understand because then people feel like they're in more control over that sort of stuff. And I think there's nothing better than being in a position where you know you're in control to create a better life for yourself. What got you curious or interested in neuroscience?
For sure. So it happened, as most things do, in my childhood. We'll get there. We'll get there. But in relation to brain science specifically, there was this exhibit that came to my elementary school in the gym of my elementary school, and it they laid out like this human body on the gym floor, and not a real one. It was a blow up human body, and you could like walk through it. So it was this like enormous blow up human body. That would have been a wild time. Trauma? No, I'm kidding. But going into that exhibit, you walk in through the head at the top of the head essentially, and you walk through. And I remember seeing these yellow things like sticking out from the head or whatever, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" Going through the rest of the body, we go through the rest of the tour or whatever. At the very end, I asked my teacher, I was like, "Teach, why were these yellow things everywhere? They were all over the place." And she's like, "Those were nerve cells. They're from the brain." And I was like, "What were they doing all over the body?" And she's like, "The brain controls the whole body, everything." And I was just like, "The thing way at the beginning controls everything else." She's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Why would we study anything else?" And from that point forward, a neuroscientist was born, as they say. So I've just always loved it since then. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, it controls all the other body systems. Almost everything else can be traced back to it in some way. Like, everybody has one. Like, no matter who we are, animals have them, nervous systems, that is. Like, so it just, from that point forward, I was fascinated.
So sick. And what's been some of the, I guess, most life-changing things that you've learnt since studying it? If there was two or three things that stood out to you.
Uh, One is kind of counterintuitive that gets me some flack sometimes. But the first one is how much power we have. Uh, People don't understand like the nervous system in your brain seems so complicated. But what's really empowering to me, most people have heard about neuroplasticity and like the brain can change and all this kind of stuff. And that lasts your entire life. Your brain can change and grow and shift your entire life. Neuroscience supports a growth mindset.
It doesn't stop at a certain age because a lot of people think that it's like once our most developmental years are done, we're cooked. That's who we are.
No, that's not true. Your entire life. We would not get far as a human civilization if you could not learn your entire life. Um, Neurogenesis, which is the formation of new brain cells, doesn't happen very much as you get older. This is like new research, so this is always shifting a little bit, but there's five, six, seven areas in an adult brain that can form new brain cells that they found, which is kind of interesting. It's really cool. Some in your prefrontal cortex, like up behind your forehead, some in your hippocampus, which is like learning and memory and stuff. But so that's neurogenesis. That's happening way more when you're younger, but still happen. Neuroplasticity, which is learning, growing, shifting, changing, the pulling apart of already living neurons and nerves happens your entire life. It has to, because we have to learn our whole lives. So that's for sure one of the most important things that I've learned. The other thing is that your brain is in this dark cave called your skull. And so, what is objective versus subjective reality? Um, it sounds like we're getting kind of like metaphysical here, but what is subjective versus objective reality is something super empowering to start to understand, because your brain, people have heard the brain is a meaning making machine. And so it is always making meaning of things outside of itself. It is predicting its experience. This is really interesting. Like, people don't understand this, I don't think, about their emotions a lot of the times, is that they predict their emotions. They don't necessarily like have them, right? What happens is, like, you have your past experiences, your beliefs, and your values, and then your brain is taking in all this sensory information, and every single second, what your brain is predicting those sensory inputs mean, that prediction, the best guess of what they mean, is what you experience as an emotion, as a thought. And so it's kind of interesting. You're always predicting those things. And that also means that the meaning of life. Like, what is the meaning of life, right? From a neuroscience perspective, there is no meaning in life, right? Because you're making the meaning,
Yeah.
right? So if your brain is a meaning-making machine, there can't be meaning out in objective reality. It doesn't make any sense. Like, meaning, we make it. And so that's, some people are like, eye roll, but I think it's really cool because it means you get to make the meaning of everything. Like, and I joke all the time. Someone cuts you off in traffic, meaningless. You get fired from a job, meaningless.
How do you, could you change that though? For example, so if we're predicting, or yeah, our mind's essentially predicting how we want to feel, the emotions that we're going to experience, can we shift that, I guess, conditioning? I'm thinking about an example for myself. I I see this happen all the fucking time. Now I'm saying, I'm like, oh, I just wish I could fix it. But I am introverted by nature, and I've developed this idea that if I've had too much socializing, I just want to go home and either work, or I want to go home and relax. And if I notice that there's something being planned, I'll just start telling myself, no, this is going to make me super anxious. This is going to run me down. I'm going to be grumpy for it. And what often happens 99% of the time is I'll be in a sour fucking mood, grumpy bugger, right up until I get there. And then as soon as I get there, I end up having the best time. But for example, it might be 3 hours prior that I'm just being bitter because of, I guess, potentially experiences around what I think I should be feeling about this, that I should be doing something else. So is that sort of an example of that?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, we suffer unintentionally a lot as humans, like you're describing, because the whole journey up to the moment where you realize, oh, this isn't that bad, like you were suffering, whereas you didn't necessarily have to. It was meaning you were choosing to make. Ah, I'm tired and I'm drained, so this means I'm going to suffer when I get to this thing. But you chose that meaning, right? So this is like one of the central themes of cognitive behavioral therapy. A big piece of it is that you get to choose your feelings, thoughts, and actions every moment. So that's could be an example, 100% of meaning that you're making. You're making that meaning. An even deeper one is, and I know a big focus of what you want to hit on today is trauma. Trauma affects the meaning you make significantly, because what I find oftentimes is people's past baggage shapes their present moment, and then they predict forward what's in the present moment. So if you have past baggage, you create present baggage, which creates future baggage. Okay, so people predict forward their past, and they create the past in the future, which is no bueno. Especially when you have like past, especially if it's traumatic past baggage, and you make that mean past things mean things they didn't necessarily mean, and that creates all sorts of problems as you grow up, and you end up causing the same thing, the past and the future, and you stay stuck in these cycles, these circles. I work a lot after abusive relationships. People are like, I've been in 8 abusive relationships. It's like, no. You've been in the same abusive relationship 8 times. Big difference.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I think that's an interesting idea. So you haven't been in 8 abusive relationships, but you've been in the same abusive relationship 8 times. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so the difference is that the pattern is the same almost always. There's past trauma or past baggage. Trauma is a loaded word. We should definitely dive into that a little bit. But there's past, let's just use baggage for now. There's past baggage. And what's happening is you're filtering your reality. So let's pretend that I have a girlfriend in high school, and she is controlling. Okay, so we end up not working out. RIP. Okay, so but what's happening is that I've got this new girlfriend that's up here, but I've got this girlfriend back here that's over my face, and so now I can only see this girlfriend through the filter of this one, of my past experience with this one. So now I'm going into this second girlfriend relationship thinking women are controlling. Clipped. No, I'm kidding. And so I'm filtering what it means to date, what the relationship is, my feelings, my thoughts, my actions, my behaviors through the filter of that first relationship. Then let's pretend my second girlfriend, she cheats on me. Okay, yikes, rough, right? So now I'm filtering. I've got two filters. So with this third girlfriend now, women are controlling and they cheat on me. That third girlfriend has no shot, no shot. Okay, and so after enough time, bring that context over to an abusive relationship. A lot of the times this stuff happens in early relationships with your parents. I almost always ask this question, but like, who did you want love from more, your mom or your dad? Who did you want affection from more, your mom or your dad? Like, who did you want you to say, great job, Lachie, your dad or your mom, right? And kind of figure that out, and ask people that question, and then start to talk about what was your relationship like with them? Well, I didn't have a dad, or my dad was abusive, or my mom was abusive and she was narcissistic, or whatever that was. And that's your initial pattern. That's that filter, that first filter. Just like the girlfriend who was controlling, it's that same filter. And so now I'm viewing relationships and I'm viewing what love is through that filter. Okay. And so now not only am I filtering what love is through this, I got rose-colored glasses on, because now what is love? I'm saying, you match the pattern. Let's go. And now we're in a relationship, even though it was a emotionally abusive or narcissistic relationship pattern. And so that continues to happen over and over and over again. And this past baggage that we've shoved down into our bodies wants another shot to get released. That trauma wants to get released. So it drags us back into similar situations so it can get another at bat. It wants another attempt to release itself. It wants you to complete that relationship in a positive way so that it's no longer trapped in that pattern. So it brings you back to similar type people so you can try again. And then because you don't know this, you fall into the same pattern, you get in the same abusive relationship, and it doesn't work out again. And then you still have that trauma. So then, all right, next up, and you go to the next one to try and repeat the pattern and heal again. And people get stuck in that pattern. Does that make sense?
Hell yeah, that was awesome. And for those who weren't watching on YouTube, watch on YouTube, because there's plenty of good animations there that help me, because I love watching things. But that makes so much sense, is that compounding effect. And it's almost like shining the mirror back on you to be like, want a fucking good relationship, you can't walk away from this. You have to face this trauma or whatever it is that's holding you back, because it's just going to keep rearing its head. And if you want to, it's probably the same, right, for people trying to lose weight, or you mentioned relationship, but also then trying to create wealth as well. If you keep finding self-sabotaging behaviors, there's something that your body or subconsciously you need to sort out.
100%. 100% agree.
Savage. So how does the body hold trauma? So let's say, for example, we're going back to that relationship example you gave us, and I've been cheated on. I've been in an abusive relationship. So therefore there's fear, there's anger, there's a bit of obviously resentment, because you see them on social media living a good life, but you're still stuck in the pit of it all. How does that impact your body? And obviously moving forward, you've mentioned the mindset stuff, but is there any physical effects?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Most people have read, or not. Let me just disclaim this. Most people have seen the title, "The Body Keeps the Score," and assume the rest of it. Okay, but they haven't read the book or looked at some of the research. From a brain science perspective, the brain keeps the score, but the body is the scoreboard. Okay, so the body keeps the score is a bit of a misnomer. Okay, it's a science. It's science communication. I do a ton of science communication, so I absolutely get it. And I think that book has had a massive effect on helping people kind of understand how inflammation and trauma can affect the body. But it is your brain ultimately that is keeping score. But again, your body is the scoreboard. Okay, so it can affect the body, especially. I'm trained in something called internal family systems psychotherapy, and that's a form of therapy that trauma therapy that considers us all made of multiple parts. So there's the part of Cody that's anxious, or the part of Lachie that is depressed, or right, there's different parts of us. And these parts are little traumatized kids, okay? And so think of them in your psyche a little bit, but our brains are really good at ignoring these traumatized parts. And so sometimes to get your attention, they will go down into your body, into your peripheral nervous system, and say, oh, let's make your chest really tight, or your shoulders and your chaps really like sore, and things like that. That's one way these parts can kind of get your attention, for you to go pay attention to them and go do the work with them that you need to do to help that part of you heal, so that it doesn't have to do that job anymore. That's one thing. The other thing too is, if we can get real deep here, but something traumatic happens, like it comes in through your body. Okay, your body takes in the sensory information. It goes through your nervous system, okay, into your brain, and then your mind, which is like the notification center for your like mind, brain, and body. It's like a notification center, that's like, oh, hey, trauma is happening outside in the body, and it essentially, in relation to trauma, is like, no, thank you, and goes back to the brain. Is like, hey, brain, please hold on to this, man. Like, can do. And the brain's like, well, what do you want me to do? I got nerve cells here. I can't just store these. I don't have, all my nerve cells are accounted for. Like, what do you want me to do? So your nervous system, being very smart, is like, who could hold on to this? The body. So many things. We got fascia, we got muscles, we got skin, we got so much stuff downstairs. Let's just throw it down there. So it goes to something called your hypothalamus. And I'm very oversimplifying a lot of this, but it goes to something called your hypothalamus, which is half endocrine and half nervous system tissue. And so what it does is shifts this electrochemical message into a neurochemical, not neurochemical, but chemical and hormonal message, which is the communication pathway of your body. Your body communicates through immune cells, hormones, and things like that. It's how your body talks. Your different body parts talk to one another. And so that electrochemical message, like, I can't hold on to this, gets shoved into these hormones and these neuropeptides and these immune cells that get shoved down into the cells of your body, in between your muscle fibers, and they get clamped down and locked down into your peripheral nervous system. And that traumatic thing that's inside of here is now locked inside of your nervous system. And that traumatic memory is locked in here, and all of the chemicals and the cytokine, or the immune messengers, are locked in between those muscle fibers and in your fascia and in your skin, and IBS and rosacea and all these things that can start to happen. That's how that your body is keeping the score, if that makes sense, or is the scoreboard.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you say like a few of the, I guess, symptoms of those causes. A lot of people just go, oh, it must be diet, and it's very often overlooked with the trauma. I was listening to a very good podcast the other day with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he was on Modern Wisdom, sorry, with Chris Williams.
Heck yeah.
Oh, dude, it was like 2.5 hours. And I've listened to a little bit of Joe Dispenza, and I sort of go in and out of listening to his stuff. But he was at a point in this one where he was talking about some of the research he's gotten, the shifts and, I guess, healings of people he's experienced. He's like, I need to get this tested again because I don't believe it. Like, it just doesn't seem believable. And it was the first time I've really listened to something that he said where it's just like, it hasn't seemed super airy fairy, and I'm not saying that there's like it really. So let's just say it really connected with me for the first time, and that's when I went back and I was like, well, and we spoke about this when we caught up, like when I did my hypnotherapy and my neurolinguistic programming, etc., and timeline therapy and all of those things. Like, I didn't believe in that stuff in the beginning, and I didn't think I had trauma. I didn't think I was in pain, and I went through these experiences, and all this stuff starts popping up, and I'm like, whoa. Where did that come from? I need to look at that. It was like the most confronting experiences, but afterwards I just felt like a whole new person. I felt like this weight had been lifted. And so as you're saying all of this stuff, I'm like, and there's got to be more to it with not only myself, but people who are experiencing a lot of these symptoms of, of trauma ultimately.
Oh yeah. It's one of the most overlooked things ever. Like people come in with all these chronic issues, and clinicians don't necessarily, they're busy, like they're overwhelmed and burnt out themselves, like, first of all, and second of all, they're not necessarily like specifically trained in like psychosomatic symptoms and things like that. that can be caused and led from uh, trauma and from things that you're ignoring and not talking to and working out and having a conversation with, because you can talk to those traumatized parts of you and help heal them.
What would that process look like? So, say for example, let's use I'm a bloke. I once again never believed in this stuff, but now as I'm listening to Lachlan and Cody talk, I'm curious, right? And I think that maybe there is some shit there that's leading to some symptoms in my life. What would that process then start to look like for me if I wanted to start healing
It, say the back end piece again. Sorry, the
ultimately?
last part.
If I wanted to start healing,
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So there's a couple concepts. So top down versus bottom up is the first concept to kind of understand, and then safety. Um, we can get all warm and fuzzy in here, but top down is like your traditional talk therapy. Um, and if you're talking about like trauma, there's a couple pieces here because like what is trauma and things like that. But if we're talking about
okay.
uh,
Should we let's define trauma in this just for the sake of people listening.
Yeah, that'd be super helpful to just lay the framework because there's a lot of words thrown around now, like everything's traumatic. Okay, while I love to hear that trauma is more in the mainstream, um, I've been using the word or potentially traumatic event (PTE). Like if you look in the research and the literature, that's what we're talking about. Because what people do not realize is that in any traumatic event, any is a big, broad, sweeping term. But in most traumatic events, 2/3 of people come out fine. They build resilience and like they're not traumatized. So that's a potentially traumatic event. 1/3 of people get the PTSD, the complex PTSD, the trauma. They're traumatized by this, and there's varying degrees and things like that.
Sorry to interject. Is there any reason why some people do come out the other side of that experience with PTSD, for example, and others don't? They become more resilient from it and seem to just move forward. Is there any science around that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Context. The way that I think about it is event, experience, and effect. The three E's. Okay. So let's pretend the event is a house fire, just for shits and giggles here. And let's pretend your house is on fire. Okay. That is the experience of your house being on fire for you could be potentially traumatic because you have to run around, find your kids, find the books, or find all the stuff. For me, it'd be books, all the stuff that you want to save, like all of the different things that you're trying to get out of your house. You're trying to call the police, right? That's freaky and scary. So the effect of that could be traumatic, PTSD, right? All right, now let's pretend for the same event, you're a firefighter, okay? Way different experience. This is your fifth house of the night, okay? Like you're like, okay, I need to get this door. I need to make sure the people are out. I need to do this. Like that, the experience of that same event is completely different for you as a firefighter, and it absolutely would build resilience. So that's just context why there could be a difference on event to expense. Now let's pretend if you're looking at the family whose house is on fire, the daughter came out completely fine. The son's traumatized, the dad's traumatized, the mom's fine. Okay, some of that, the difference in that is genetic. There's a huge genetic predisposition to some of these types of things. There's the which is like nature versus nurture type of concept, and then there's the individual experience as well. Did one of those people lose everything? They couldn't get to their bedroom and get anything. Okay, that's like everything gone in an instant. While as the other sibling was able to go grab some of their stuff and save some of their stuff, so they had one thing to hold on to, one comfort object to hold on to throughout the experience. Was one trapped under a bed and one got out the front door right away? Like there's different things in the experience portion of the three E's that can help you understand and hypothesize the potential effect. And some of it is there's just not enough research as well to say definitively. That's some of the stuff that I'm really interested in working on with like machine learning and AI and things like that. But there's still a lot of research to be done in relation to why some and not others outside of the things I just described. So that's what kind of the research would suggest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I was very interested in that because my way of seeing things is not necessarily the right way. It's the right way for me. And I was curious to ask that whether there was any research and data. And obviously, there's a lot of variables. Do you believe, though, regardless of which side you're on, whether you become more resilient and you move through, or you are someone that may experience PTSD, you can still get to a place of healing?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely, without a doubt. Yes. Emphatically, yes. I've seen it myself hundreds of times. Yes, there's always hope. That light at the end of the tunnel is always possible, to get help and heal from these types of things. And there's really, 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 really good science and therapies, and trauma-based therapies that help people through these types of things. So 100% yes.
Is there an example you could give us of one of your clients before we, I guess, tie that back into the process of moving through trauma?
For sure. Yeah. So again, a lot of my uh, clients are coming to me after abusive relationships, which is almost always stems from childhood trauma. So after childhood trauma and things like that. Um, and so I've had a couple. One a huge one was, this is a really cool moment, was, there's really two moments. One was this moment where she realized that, she was telling herself a story from when she was way, way young, right? She took something in her childhood to mean, right? She made meaning in a moment, this young version of her, made it mean that she wasn't good enough and she wasn't lovable. And it was something that had happened between her and her mom. And in that moment, there's a part of her that got stuck there. And that young part of her thought, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. Like, my mom doesn't love me. She doesn't want to be with me, that kind of stuff. And she took that belief all forward for all the way up into, I think she's in her 40s now working with me. And so we were able to go back to that young version of her, and have a conversation with that part of her and help it understand that that belief it formed in that moment no longer was helping this person, my client or whatever. Let's just call him Jill. It was no longer helping Jill, right? However, that young part didn't know that. It just didn't understand that Jill was older now, right? Jill was like, this had been like 40 something years. And that part didn't have to hold on to that belief anymore. And so I just remember very distinctly, there was a shift in the conversation where she realized, holy shit, I've been telling myself this story, but that is a story. Like, I am good enough, but I have been saying that I'm not good enough. And the even bigger shift for her was, that's a part of me that feels like I'm not good enough, not me. There's a big difference, right? Adults are just kids wearing a costume. Okay, well, what's wearing the costume? Okay, that's the self, right? That's the, like, everybody calls it something different. IFS, Internal Family System, calls it the self, and that's the most you can be. It's the internal, like the most Cody I can be, the internal parent, the internal leader, whatever you want to call it. And she just realized that this, I'm not good enough. If this is herself, she was wearing this belief like it was her, but it was not her. There was a part of her that believed she wasn't good enough. And then there was her who is good enough, because we're all good enough, right? And this moment of separation, and it was just like the tiniest sliver. It was like a huge light bulb moment for her. And now all of a sudden, she's having much healthier relationships, because now, guess what? She's going in good enough, as opposed to trying to prove that she is good enough, or needing someone else to prove that she's good enough, needing someone else to give her attention, love, and affection. When she realized that, it was a big separation, a big difference for her, in relation to understanding that. Another one that was interesting was in relation to like an addiction, that stemmed from some grief. Okay, so addictions are a very interesting combination of parts inside of people. And so this human, let's name this one Bill. Jill and Bill.
Ellen?
Bill, yeah. Bill. Bill lost someone, a family member, like a son, and that grief, never really processed that grief, dissociated himself out, wasn't working through that grief. And these big, powerful emotions like grief, sadness, shame, rejection, abandonment, emotional pain, these big emotions, we don't always know what to do with them. So we shove them down. We push them down using the process we talked about earlier. We shove these emotions down because grief feels like it'll never stop. If I let that grief out, it'll never stop. It'll consume me. I'll die. Nothing will work. It'll be super, super bad. We won't survive that. Okay, so we shove the grief down. However, to keep that grief down, there's a couple things that have to happen. Okay, so this is where an addiction comes in. There's a part of you that wants to react and distract, and then there's a part of you that wants to control the future Like, I never will, Lockie, feel that pain again, that grief again. And then another part that's like, I will react and distract Lockie from ever having to feel that grief again. And so, hypothetically, let's pretend drugs, sex, alcohol, binge eating, binge shopping, whatever the addiction happens to be, you do that thing when those feelings of grief start to come up. And it's all, come on, it's not when you're hanging out with your friends and family. Most of the time, it's you're sitting by yourself, you're alone, and you're just like, shit, I've got to deal with this giant thing that's coming up that's terrifying. And so this part of you is like, all right, well, if I just do some drugs or if I just drink, then I can distract, I can change my state, and that emotion will go back down, and I won't have to deal with that because I'm distracted from it. That's one half. The other half is you got this critical part, okay? This critical part that's like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? We just stopped this. We've been clean. We haven't done drugs in so long. And what is our family going to think in relation to a trauma bond? Are you seriously? You went back to them? You went back to the abusive partner? I can't believe you. How could you do this? And so this inner critic is just beating the shit out of the part of you that's like, wait a minute. If I didn't do this, all of this grief would have come up. This giant, powerful emotion would have come up, overtaken us. We would have died. And so this part is like, what the hell? Do you not get what I'm doing and how important this is? And then this part's like, dude, screw you. Like, you're fucking everything up because society hates these behaviors. I don't pathologize any of these behaviors because all of them are little children that are just trying to protect you from this giant, powerful emotion. And even that giant, powerful emotion has wisdom in it, but it's a traumatized child too. And so this system of kids are just running around causing mayhem that we call life now. And the inner critic puts the whatever the addicted part is into a shame cycle, which then it acts out again, and surprise, surprise, you relapse or whatever happens. And until you go to these parts and become the inner leader of your inner world and be able to go to the addicted part, be able to go to the inner critic and go to that exiled emotion, you're bound to repeat the same thing over and over again. And so I had a guy that we did that with. First and foremost, we went and realized, hey, do you realize, Bill, that this giant emotion, it isn't forever. I promise. I've done it with hundreds of people. I promise that. And we were able to update these two parts, the inner critic and the addicted part. I was like, hey, we literally talked to them. I was like, hey, do you realize you're both doing the same thing? And they're like, wait, what do you mean? And I talked to them both. What's your ultimate purpose and what's your purpose? Well, we want to protect Bill from this thing, from the grief. And these parts were like, oh shit, you mean we're trying to do the same thing? Because they never knew that about one another. They are just button heads. So we got these two parts on the same team. And then we were like, hey, Bill's parts, right? Inner critic and binge drinker, whatever. Did you know that actually you don't have to do these jobs at all? We can go to that part, release that like unhealed trauma, and go rescue that part so you don't have to do these jobs anymore. And they're like, holy shit, you can do that? And we're like, yeah, we can. And they're like, oh my God, let's do that. Went and released this, and boom, right? This addiction, which is actually a cycle of parts beating the shit out of each other, disappears because now this deeper wound has been released and healed, and there's no longer any reason for them to do their jobs because there's nothing to protect because you've healed it. That was a long-winded response. So I appreciate you letting me go.
That was a brilliant response. You touched on heaps of stuff. Sorry, my mic's dropping in and out. But you touched on a heap of stuff that I was going to continue probing about, which was awesome. So for the man who is like wanting that change, now there was one part where you mentioned get those things to stop butting heads, but what would that actually look like for the individual? Like, is there a process that you go through, or how does that operate?
Yeah, so the deeper exiled emotion, like the big stuff like shame, grief, anger, sadness, I highly recommend not trying to talk to those by yourself at first. Work with someone like an IFS therapist or practitioner that can help you through that, because those can be kind of scary at first. So just big disclaimer about like exiled emotions, the super deep stuff. Protective mechanisms, though, those protectors, the addicted part or the inner critic. I do a lot of work with inner critics, so let's just use that. You can go talk to them, okay? And it's there. There's even meditations, if you will, on YouTube where you can listen and go have a conversation with these parts of you. And when I'm working with someone, for example, I would literally say, okay, let's sit back. Let's get present for a second. I want you to feel your shirt, close your eyes, go inward, feel your shirt on your shoulders, start to notice your breath going in and out of your nose or your mouth or whatever, and get them present for a second. And then put the intention in your mind, hey, what the intention I want for this, I'd like us to have for this conversation is to just shift our relationship with this inner critic and just make that the intention as they're kind of winding themselves down. And then we start to have a conversation with that part. First and foremost by saying, when you think about this part of you, this inner critic, where do you see it? Where do you feel it? Where do you hear it in or around your body? And help them find it somatically somewhere. And some people feel it outside. Inner critics especially are notorious for being like right outside their face or right above their head or in somewhere in their head or their forehead somewhere, like upstairs. And once they have found that part, it's like, okay, focus your attention on that part, okay? And let's just have a conversation with this. Can you open up? Can you be curious towards this part? Can you be compassionate towards this part for a couple minutes while we ask it some questions? And you start to get to know that part by asking it, what do you want me to, what's your intention for me, Mr. Part, Mr. Inner Critic? What do you want from me? Do you like your job? How long have you been doing your job? Where did you learn this from? Where did you pick up this behavior? Do you remember the first time you did this? Hey, do you realize that I'm actually like 27 now, not 6? Like, did you know that? I just want to update you. And you're starting to ask it some of these questions, and you start to ask it, a huge question to ask it is, what are you afraid would happen, Mr. Inner Critic, if you didn't do this job, right? Do you ever feel appreciated for doing the job? Or are you ostracized? Are you beat up by other parts, by me, by society? And you're starting to get to know it. And the goal here is to give it some attention, some love, some affection, listen, understand, and validate it. That's the only thing you got to do. Because essentially this part has been ostracized and has been doing this job. It's a parentified child that's been doing this job for years and years and years. And you've got to remember, it is a single-digit-year-old child, right? That, like, let's pretend you were 4 or 5 in elementary school. You raise your hand, you ask a stupid question, and you start to get humiliated because people are laughing at you, calling you stupid, calling you dumb, and that, boom, instantly, that inner critic took on the role. I'm going to beat the shit out of everything Cody thinks and says before it gets out of his mouth, so he never gets criticized like that again. So I'm going to, boom. And then that's like one random way an inner critic could get made. And it took on that role at 4, and it doesn't realize, hey, did you realize actually that I can handle this type of stuff now? I don't have to believe everything. People call me short. I'm freaking 6'6". Come on. Like, you don't have to believe everything. You don't have to believe everything. And so, but that 4-year-old doesn't know that, because you have to grow up fast and emotionally mature. And so that's what that conversation ends up turning into is a realization that this is a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old part of you that's been beating the shit out of you, but for really no reason, but it has a good intention. It has a positive intention. There's never, ever, 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 ever been a part that I've talked to that's like, yeah, I want this Locky dude to fail. I just want him to not succeed. Like when you get down to it, okay, there are parts of people that fear success, and they'll sabotage your success, but for a positive reason, right? Success meant you were in the limelight and that made your mom abuse you more and push you harder because she was a narcissist and wanted you to succeed to make it look good for her. To make it look good for her. Oh, okay, so success was traumatizing. That makes a lot of sense to a 4-year-old. And so that's what these conversations turn into is by being inquisitive and curious and compassionate with these parts of you, find them in your body and then being inquisitive with them. That's what it like literally looks like. I would do that with someone. All of those questions, one at a time, and much slower than I am because I'm excited right now. But
You do that in group situations as well, though, right?
yeah, you absolutely can.
We might have to get you in for our academy members. I think that would be fucking awesome. So
Yeah,
how long
cool.
how long does it roughly take though? So for example, I used to believe for a long time that it took years to overcome setbacks, traumas, beliefs, etc. But from your experience and your knowledge, like how quickly can you shift a belief and let go of all the trauma?
So when you get to those exiled emotions, it can happen in the course of a session with someone, maybe an hour, 90 minutes or whatever. However, okay, the problem is that, and this is the issue with psychedelics at times, or spiritual bypassing, or all these different things or whatever. The problem is that these protective parts, they've been guarding those exiled emotions for a very, very, very long time. So if you just go right to that X out emotion and rip it out of that cage it's been locked in, and now that cage is empty, all your protective parts see is an empty cage, and that is dangerous. And that, to them, it's dangerous. So they start to criticize you more. They start to self-harm, suicidal ideation, dissociation, anger, rage.
Wow.
And so going directly to an X out emotion, sure, you could rescue it and release the trauma in a session, but that's not at all, not at all good for your psyche and for the rest of your system, because it's not, you can't act without thinking about the effect of one thing on the rest of the system. Once you get this, that you're made of many parts and they all interact with one another, one thing that you shift over here shifts something over here, and you've got to understand that effect. And so ideally what you're able to do is go talk to these protective parts. Every X out emotion we have, whether it's shame, abandonment, rejection, all the ones we talked about, they have a system of protectors around them, guarding these X out emotions. So ideally what you're able to do is go get to know these protectors and have conversations with these protectors and be a hope merchant for those protectors and be like, hey, did you know actually I could go save that X out part? Would you be cool with that? All right, inner critics on the bus, cool. All right, now we're going to keep chugging along. All right, let's go over to the bin shopper. Hey, bin shopper, let me listen, understand, validate, love you up. And then, hey, did you realize I could go to this X out part and you want to get on the bus? Oh, okay, you're on the bus too. And you go drive around and you get all these protectors on the bus, and then you bring them with you to help you talk to that X out emotion because they know it best. They've been guarding it their entire lives. Okay, and then you can go to the X out emotion, and that can happen in an hour, 2 hours, where you start to really go rescue that X out emotion. Sometimes those X out emotions are so deeply ingrained. It takes time. Like sometimes it's just about sitting next to the self, the bigger version of you, that internal parent, and just getting some of that self energy, that love, that compassion for the first time. Then the next session, maybe they're willing to kind of step out of their cage a little bit, and they're willing to look up at you. Right? I've worked with an X out, a shame X out inside of myself, that when I got to it, it wouldn't even look up at me. like it was just like this little boy that he just caught looking something up on the internet. He shouldn't have been looking up at a young age, and he wouldn't even look up at me. And it wasn't until I was able to love it up a little bit and be like, dude, like you're just a curious little dude. Like it's okay. Like it's gonna be fine. You're not going to hell. Like I was raised Catholic. That it finally was able to look up at me and release some of that, just a tiny bit of that shame. But it took a session or two to get to that place. So once you're there and it's ready to leave that moment, boom, it can happen instantly. But it does take some time. From my experience, 3, 6, 9 months is usually the length of time I'm seeing people. And then they're able to, and that's going through the protectors and then finally getting to the X out emotion. Oftentimes, as you're doing that exploration, there's other exiles that come up. And so people need some extra help, and we need to find and work with some other protectors and things. But 6 to 9 months is what I've seen if we're zoned in on one specific thing. And I personally don't believe that therapy needs to be for a whole lifetime. That's why I love internal family systems, is because it's like, okay, how can I help Lachie learn the skills to do this for himself, inside of himself, so that one day he can not have to be dependent on someone else. And then when the big, huge stuff comes, you can go get help, because it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. Okay, so there's always going to be a place for getting help. I mean, you run a community of awesome guys that are all helping one another. That's huge. There are things that just by simply because you're outside the bottle, you can see and help me with. But that doesn't mean that I have to be in a therapist every single day for the rest of my life forever. There's a lot of maintenance that can be done by yourself as well once you learn some of these basic skills.
I think that's such a powerful point, because I feel when I didn't feel like I was in control of understanding my emotions and my thoughts and shit that I was, I guess, just simmering on for a long time, I did have that feeling of helplessness. I didn't think
Mm,
I could change my life. I thought that who I was, the way I thought, that was set in stone. And that really bothered me because I didn't like where I was at. I didn't like how I was thinking. So when I started investing in coaches like yourself and doing courses, reading books, listening to podcasts, and actually just building a better relationship with myself, I started recognizing that that could change. And obviously, when I started changing, people, I was changing in other people's world as well. And there were some people who were all for that. And there was a lot of people who didn't like that. And that was one of the other
ooh,
challenges that I experienced, was like, Lockie can't change. He used to do this, this is this. Don't forget that. It's like, yeah, fuck, I did do that, but want to learn from that. I want to grow from that. And if you try to hold me to where I once was, you're never going to get the best of me. And I feel a lot of people experience that. The things that I've taken away from our conversations today, and I'd definitely love to have you back on in a couple of months, and we'll definitely be getting you into our speak to our academy members, was just the power of it doesn't matter the situation in which way you interpret it or whether you do have trauma or are experiencing PTSD or various other things as a result of that, or if you're someone who just feels like you've come out stronger. Regardless of that, you still have the power to get back in control of that and feel like you're in control. And the thing you said where it's like you can't read the label from inside the bottle, that's fucking genius. Because when you feel like you're in control, that's awesome. But even myself, I'm like, I you know, do this for a living, but I still see help. I still have coaches and mentors who point out my blind spots. And when it gets a little bit too much, it's like, dude, I need some help here because this is going to help me level up. But you're going to see something that I cannot yet see. And the fastest way to overcome something or break through something is with that third party.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And the other thing you were mentioning too, and I love because you run a community, is you're absolutely right that there are some people that are going to be like, oh yeah, new Locky. I call it, my programs are the Me 2.0 programs because you've got to get where you've never been. You got to do what you've never done. You got to become who you've never become. And so we call it the Me 2.0 version of you. And so there's this 1.0 version of you. Like imagine the 1.0 version of you is this little square. Okay. And you've got all these other squares that are connected to you. And those squares are predicting you. They're the people, places, and things that are around you. And they're predicting your behavior into that 1.0 version of Locky. Okay. And so then you become 1.5. Okay. And you become a circle. However, and this is the big key, you become a circle, but you still have the squares around you, the people, places, and things around you. Okay. And so your environment is the largest predictor of your future success, your behavior, your emotions, your everything. Okay. Your behavior, especially. And so what happens, like you're saying, is you start to realize you have to go tell these squares, hey, should have get off the pot, bro. This is me now. I am now this circle. You can either become a circle with me and know that in the future, Lockie's going to be like this and help predict me into this new version of myself, or peace out, man. No contact. Like I can't deal with this. You got to cut people out, people, places, and things out that don't support this new version of you. And this is the biggest failure point in behavioral change and healing that I see is that people heal them. They do the work to become a circle, but then they go back into an environment that is all squares and they get predicted right back into a square as opposed to actually crossing the threshold and becoming that circle and creating circles around them to support the new version of themselves. So I just want to
That was cool.
I just want to highlight how important the work that you do in your academy is, and how important the point you just made is, because it is the literal breaking point of will heal over time or won't.
Yep. And I appreciate you highlighting that because for me, I was doing a lot of immersive experiences. And when I'd follow up with clients who came to our workshops, like 2, 3 weeks later, they'd fallen back into that same habit that had them in the shit in the first place. And I'm sitting there scratching my head going, why can't everyone just maintain this? Like the environment influences us so heavily. But what then compounds on top of that is then we start associating to the fact that I will never change. I've tried that. People will be listening to this, Cody, and they'll go, oh, fuck, not another thing. It's like, I've tried everything. It's like, okay, there's so many people that I watch, dude. And I'm like, you got to change your environment. I'm going to watch you do everything else. But until you change your environment, you're going to keep being like a slingshot. You'll get pulled away and then come flying straight back.
100%.
I want to respect your time. I've really valued you coming on here today. I know the feedback's going to be phenomenal. Where can people follow along or get in touch with you?
Yeah, everywhere is Mind Brain Body Lab. So any social media platform is just at Mind Brain Body Lab. And then the website is mindbrainbodylab.com. And then if they want to email me or reach out, it's Cody at mindbrainbodylab.com. So everything is Mind Brain Body Lab, all one word, anywhere that you want to reach out.
I'll have all the links in the show notes so you can just scroll on down and click the link and have easy access. It's super well done. And for those of you who have stayed to the end, really appreciate you following through. I'm sure you got immense value. Make sure you share this episode with someone that you know will get value. Leave a rating and review. And once again, do something today to be better for tomorrow.